Hello everyone. Hello everyone. Welcome to today's workshop. Today we are building a note-taking application using a very interesting technology known as React. All of you must have used some kind of note-taking application either on your phones or your laptops. Maybe something like Evernote or Samsung Notes. So today we are building something like that using React. Now React is a JavaScript library, and it's pretty cool and very useful to use as well for front-end applications. So let's get into our workshop for today. Okay, so first off, I'm going to talk about the assembly. The assembly is a smart lab based out of In5 since December 2014. Since then, we have done over 250 free workshops. Our workshops are of three types. There's Hack, which is related to hardware, embedded systems, and IoT. There's Code, which is software related. So we talk about APIs, frameworks, and applications here. And this is a code workshop. And there's also data science. So we talk about AI and machine learning there. Our target audience consists of students, professionals, entrepreneurs, and anybody interested in technology. So here we focus on smart technology and its applications. We do hands-on workshops here. You could also join our forum on members.theassembly.ae. We are very active on our social media, so please do tag us on our social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Our handles are displayed here on the screen, so yeah, be sure to find us. Okay, before we start off with the actual workshop, I want to tell you guys about the workshop we are having on this Tuesday, which is a workshop in collaboration with Etisalat. We will be doing a hands-on workshop using the Etisalat web platform, and we are going to build a fleet management application there. So yeah, be sure to attend that workshop as well. Okay, so be sure to attend that workshop. Let's start off with today's workshop, which is a note-taking application using React. So let's start off with talking about what React is. React is an open source front-end JavaScript library for building user interfaces. So it makes building user interfaces on the front end very easy and very cool to use. It was developed by Facebook and it was developed in 2011 and it is still maintained by Facebook. Okay, so why do you want to use React? There are 4 reasons. The first one is we can write reusable code using React because React is built using components. The second is that it has a smooth learning curve. It's very easy to learn. Abstraction, because it offers a layer of abstraction so that you cannot see the internal React code. You can only see what's on the front end. And it has a wide variety of developer tools for developers to use and build their applications. So yeah, let's get on with the actual hands-on application. So here is an example of a notes application. There's a sidebar and there's an editor. So the way that I organize my files here is going to be the editor on the right side, for which we are going to use a library called React Quill, and the sidebar on the left side, and each node I will be calling it the sidebar item. This is just the organization for the files, and you'll be seeing it in the code. So let's get set and React. So before anything, it will be important to download Node.js on your laptops. I hope you have downloaded it. So use the LTS version, which is the most recommended one for most users. And I'll go on to my terminal, but on Windows you can use the git bash, or you can also use the Visual Studio terminal. Firstly I'll check if Node is downloaded on my system. I'll do it by using node flag v. So there is a version of Node on my laptop, and npm v to check npm, which is a Node package manager. So yes, there is a Node package manager also on my screen on my computer. So the way that we create a Node, a React application is just using this command, npx create React app, and the name of the application. Okay, before this, I need to change directory to that. cd into the desktop, and here I'll create my React application. So this is going to take a minute to download. Here npx will download all of the required React libraries to make sure React is already preloaded with all the packages we might need. I think it's taking some time. It's taking a lot of time, so I guess we have to wait for this to download. I'm not sure why it's taking so much time, but yeah. So anyway, until the React app is getting loaded, let me talk more about the next steps that we are going to do. So we are within React. We need four packages, which is Material UI, Core and Icons, as well as React, Quill, and Firebase. So Material UI is actually it provides free components to use. So using Material UI can make it really easy for us to get components without actually having to make all those components, without having to reinvent the wheel. So Material UI is the first thing. Then there's React Quill. Now, as I showed you here, in the editor part, the editor, we want something very sophisticated for the editor because we want a rich text editor. So for that, I've found this library called Quill. Let me show it to you. Okay, this is not the one. Yeah, so it's a powerful rich text editor which gives us options to change the font, to to make it well formatted as well. So React Quill is a version of Quill that was made for React itself. So that's the editor we are going to use. And for the database, we will be using Firebase. Firebase is a database solution. It's actually not just database. It's a very wide platform that has been developed by Google, and we are going to be using the database solution provided by Firebase, which is called Firestore. So Firestore is actually it offers real-time updates and is very fast and easy to use. So that's why we are using Firebase. Let me just show that to you. This is Firebase. Until everything else, 1 minute. Oh yeah, okay. We have React app. So we'll get back to Firebase later. Now, as I told you about the packages we need to install, wait, let me just cd into the Node app, then install these packages: Material UI Core, Material UI Icons, Firebase, and React Quill. Yeah, so we'll let that continue to download. Until then, let's head on to Firebase, go to the console. Let's create a new project. I will call it the Note application. Continue. I don't really need Google Analytics for this project, so create project. Until then, oops. Okay, I just made a mistake here. Let's do that again. Until that is done, I think we have our Material UI and React Quill and Firebase downloaded. Let us see what happens when we run the application. We run it by typing npm start. So here we have a basic React application. All we did was run a command to create the application, and we have a fully functioning basic React application here. So yeah, as you can see, it was very easy to create the initial application. After working on Firebase, we are going to go to Visual Studio Code and start coding. So on Firebase, we have our application ready. I'm going to press this one to add our application to the web, to a web application. So a nickname for the app, Node application, register the app. And we have some Firebase SDK, which we are going to add to the index file later on. For now, let's head on to the Visual Studio Code. I'm going to open this folder on the Visual Studio Code. It's right here, Node app. So as you can see, React has created several files for us within this application, and we are going to work on this. So first off, let's go see here. There's a function called app, and it has the logo and all of that we saw on the website. We don't need this right now, so I'm just going to remove all this, because instead of a function, we are going to create an app. So class app extends React.component, and we are going to build a basic class here with a constructor. So this dot state. This state is the state basically means the state of the application. So here we're going to have three states: selected node index, selected node, and nodes. So selected node index is going to be the node that we select and its index. Selected node is going to be the particular node that we select, and the third one is nodes, which will be an array. Yeah, I'll explain this again when I show you the final application. And within the render, we'll have a return statement, which is supposed to have, for now we'll just call it hello world, and we'll test it to see whether it works. Okay, I think we need to import React. Yep. Okay, so we have a hello world application, very basic, but we are going to go into more details very soon. Now we had a Firebase SDK here. I'm going to copy everything in between the second script tag. So copy it here. Go to index.js. right here. And before the DOM render function, I'm going to paste my Firebase configuration. I also need to import Firebase. So import Firebase from Firebase app. And within Firebase, we want Firestore. Great. So now we have added the Firebase configuration to our app. Now let's go to our console on Firebase. Go to Cloud Firestore because we are using Firestore here. And create a new database. We will start it in the test mode. And we'll keep the location as default. Okay, so each database has a collection. We call a collection nodes here because our application is for nodes. And then each collection has documents, or you could say, for example, in Excel, there are rows of documents. Here we have documents similarly, and we auto ID it, which is just an ID for each document. We have two fields, one is the title and another is the body. Because each node, we wanted to have a title and a body. So the title, let me call it today's title, and the body, this is today's note. So we have some sample note here. Let's save it. Okay, great. So we'll get back to Firebase later. Now we want to go into Visual Studio and start coding. Before we start coding, I also want to create a new file under the src folder. I'll call it helpers.js. These are just some helper functions. I'm going to copy them from this previous application I created. And you can also do the same. So it's a debounce function here and a remove HTML tags function here. So debounce function and remove HTML tags are going to be used later. So I will be explaining them when I use them in the files. For now, I will close this and this as well. Yeah, so now in app.js, I want to create, so we have a hello world application here. What I want to do is create a lifestyle hook here. I will tell you what that is. So component did mount. Component did mount is basically a function that is called whenever the app is mounted onto the browser. So we want to load in the nodes from the Firebase into our application, and we are going to do that in the component did mount function. So, oops, yeah. Before that, let me just import Firebase. And within Firebase, import Firestore. So within component did mount, we call Firebase, and we call a function of Firebase called Firestore. And oops, 1 minute. And within Firestore, we want to connect with the nodes collection which we just created. Then we call an onSnapshot function. The onSnapshot function basically gives us a snapshot of the database. So it gives us a snapshot, and within this we are going to call a callback function. I'm going to call it server update as the parameter, and within it goes some code. Okay, so I'll explain what I did just now. So within Firebase, I called Firestore. Within Firestore, I called collection nodes, and within that, I need a snapshot of the database. So within that, I passed a callback function, and what we are doing is basically getting each document from the database. The map function creates an array called nodes here, and then we pass the nodes array to our nodes, which is coming from here, which is the nodes state. Okay. Now, as I said, we need three folders. We need three parts of the application. One is the sidebar, one is the sidebar item, and one is the editor. So within SRC folder, I'm going to create three folders, three subfolders. Oops. I created files by mistake. Okay, so sidebar, editor, sidebar item. Within editor, I need two files, editor.js and styles.js. Within sidebar also, I want two files, sidebar.js, styles.js. Within sidebar also same, sidebar item.js, styles.js. So we have these set up. Now for each of these files, I'm going to write a basic code to get everything up and running. I'm going to copy the import statements from here. and create an editor component class. With the constructor. And the editor is going to have a state as well. I pass in a JavaScript object. So in the editor, we want to see the title, the body, and we want to give it an ID. So the body, title, and an ID. So we have the state ready. And then we go to render and we return a basic, this is the editor. This is the editor, kind of like in hello world return for now, so that we can test it out if everything is working on the website. And then we export it. So I will explain what happens here, just a minute. Okay, so width styles is a feature of Material UI, and what Material UI does is, what width styles does is, it takes the styles file from here, the styles.js file, and adds it to the editor component and then exports the component. So this is much more straightforward compared to doing a CSS and then linking the CSS here. So we have an editor component and we have a return statement with this is the editor text, and it also has a state called body, title, and ID. Now we need a styles.js file which contains the styles we want to apply here. So I am going to go here to my previous application and I will just copy the styles. Copy and paste the styles. You can look at the styles later on and see and play around with them and see what works for the application best. So now we have the editor and the styles.js associated with the editor. Now I will go on to the sidebar. We'll also copy the import statements from here because that makes it much more straightforward. We are importing React from React, importing with styles, using which we are going to export the application. We are importing styles, the styles.js file from here. We are importing a list component, a divider component, a button component from Material UI. So we don't have to write these components from start. We can just import them from Material UI. And we also import the sidebar item component, which we will talk about soon. So now I'm just going to make a sidebar class. Which extends the React component. So this line basically just makes the sidebar component as a React component. A basic constructor. We don't need any state here for now. And then we want it to render, this is the sidebar text on our browser. So we do it by returning div. This is the sidebar. And then we have to export the sidebar component. So we do export default with styles, which is the styles.js file, and then pass the component, sidebar component. Okay, so now we have done the sidebar class, and we need to get in the styles.js for the sidebar. I will copy it from the sidebar folder, paste it here. So now we are done with the basic boilerplate code for the editor and the sidebar. We are going to do something similar for the sidebar item. So get the import statements from here. We are importing React. We are importing with styles. Import list item text, which are components coming from the material UI, and a delete icon coming also from material UI, and a remove HTML tags, which is coming from the helpers file, which we copied earlier here. I'm going to show you the output in just a minute because I need the editor, the sidebar, and the sidebar item to be set up so that I can then add it to the app.js file, and then we can run the application and show how it works. So we make a sidebar item component that extends React.component with a constructor. We don't need a state here either, and we just wanted to return something saying this is the sidebar item, and the same thing we're going to do here, export default with styles, pass in the styles.js, pass in the sidebar item component, so we have the boilerplate code ready for sidebar item.js as well. The last thing we need to do is copy over the styles.js. So we have that now. So let me recap. There are 3 folders within the src folder: the editor, the sidebar, and the sidebar item. Within that, we have 2 JavaScript files: the editor.js, the styles.js, sidebar.js, styles.js, and so on. Each of these, for example, editor.js contains an editor component, sidebar.js contains a sidebar component, and so on. We pass in a state here in the constructor when required by the component, and then within the render we pass in this is the editor or this is the sidebar. Finally, we export the component with styles along with the styles required for the component. Just one step remaining to display it on our browser, which is that we need to import all of this into the app.js so that we can get the components and show them on the application. So I will import 2 of the components, which is the editor and the sidebar. So import the editor component from /editor/editor and import sidebar component from /sidebar/sidebar. After importing, we will place our components right here. I will call in the sidebar component first and then call in the editor component here. I will also give this one a class name, app container. And yes, that's it for now. So we can go ahead and go to our terminal to see if there are any errors. There are just warnings. So let's go to our React application. Okay. Okay, so in the app class, there seems to be an error. Class app extends React.component. Give me a minute to figure this out. Wow, the life of a programmer. Yeah, just brackets that cause errors. I'm not sure where. Let me know one thing. I will just copy the stuff from here because it might take a while to do it there. I'll just copy the constructor. See if that makes a difference. Okay, must be something. So as you can see, we have this is the sidebar and this is the editor which has been displayed here. If we inspect it, we can see that React has converted everything into HTML. But if we go back and see in the app.js, we have first called in a sidebar component and then called in an editor component. And both of them are just typing in text called this is the sidebar and this is the editor. And that is exactly what we have received here. So now we see that with all the boilerplate code that we have started off with, everything works so far. So, so yeah, we can go ahead and move on start typing code into the editor component, into the sidebar component, and the sidebar item component, and then we can finally soon, I hope, make the Node application. So in the editor, we are using a library called React Quill. So firstly, I'm just going to go to index.html. I have to copy the React Quill CSS code here. So React Quill CSS. So we copy the style sheet from here, paste it into the index.html. That's it. We don't need index.html again. So I'm going to close it. Now inside the editor, I need a few things. Firstly, I am going to get the classes from the props. So props are actually called properties, and what properties mean is here in the app.js, I could pass in some properties here, like what happens if I change something, so an onChange function, or some kind of other property that we can pass here. So we're going to pass it on later, but for now, this .props gives us the classes. Then within the return statement, I need to put three things. Firstly, I will put the React Quill. Now, React Quill by default has two values being passed. One is the value, and another is an onChange function to which we have to pass a function which will be called whenever there's a change in the React Quill component. Enclose this in a within a div. Okay. So we have a React Quill component here with a value and an onChange. The value means the state of the body. So the body, let me show you again. So this will be the React Quill component, and within this, this text is going to be called the body, and in a function later we are going to set the body as the text that is written here. An onChange function which will call the update body function, which will basically update the written text into the Firebase. So the React Quill is done. Now we need to pass an input and a border color icon. The input is basically an input form where we enter the title of the node. So we are going to assign it a class. Assign a placeholder which will be displayed until we write something there. a value because we want the title to be here, and here we will use the conditional operator. If there is a title, the value will be assigned to the title, else the value will be assigned to null. And here also we pass an onChange. We will pass the function right here. So this will, we will implement the update title very soon. After this, we want the border color icon to be there. And within it, we will pass a class name. So the classes edit icon and title input are present in styles.js. If we go here, we can see it. Edit icon is here, and I think the other one was title input, which is here. So we have editor.js. Everything that we want to return inside the div is present now. We want to then implement the title input and the update title. And also the update body. Update body, update title, and update, which is actually called inside update body and inside update title. Both update body and update title are going to be asynchronous. We use asynchronous functions whenever we want something to be whenever we want this particular line to be completed, and then so we use await whenever we want to completely execute everything here, and then only move on to the next line. So yeah, we want this. And then we call this dot update. Here as well, okay, with an update title, update title is also asynchronous. We pass in a text. The text is actually passed in here. So this is the text, txt, and we use the txt and assign it to the title. So await this dot set state. Title is the txt parameter. And then we again call this dot update. And this dot update is actually meant to go and update it into the database. So when we want our Node application to be such that whenever there is a change in the node, it is updated into the database as well. So the update will we will pass in a debounce function as well. So I will soon explain what debounce is all about. Then I will pass in a function within this. So update is a function which goes to a debounce function, and within debounce another function is passed. Yeah. So let me explain what debounce is all about. Debounce basically wants to delay the updation of the database by a few seconds. So we want that whenever we make a change to the database, it shouldn't keep on sending requests to the database every second or every millisecond, because that will just overload the system a lot. So debounce will make sure that so debounce takes in a parameter. Here we pass in 1500, which is 1.5 seconds. So debounce will make sure that the database is updated only every 1.5 seconds. So that makes sure that the system is not overloaded, and it also makes sure that updates are happening every few seconds. So within that, we call this node update function, this dot state dot id. So the title is passed, the body is passed, and the state ID is passed into the node update function. The node update function will be present in app.js, and it is passed to the editor through props. So let me show you, let me go to app.js, pass in some props here to show you how the props work. So within editor component, we pass in a few props. Selected note, selected note index. We are just passing the state of the app.js, the app component into the editor component, so that it can be used by the editor component as well. And the node update function which is here. So this node update function will be passed to the editor component here, to this editor component, and then we can use it here, this .props.node update. Yeah, and I think we'll try to display the editor for once so that we can see something visual. Let's see if it's displayed. Okay, something is displayed, but it's not. Okay. So this is the sidebar as it is, and then there is a whole editor component right here. This whole thing is the editor. So it's skewed a little bit right now because of the CSS, but yeah, at least we can type something here. This is the body of the title. Okay, it gave an error because the node update function has not been implemented, but let's go ahead and implement that now. In the app.js, we pass the node update function. It will take an ID and a node object. And within it, again, we will call Firebase Firestore collection. Firestore dot collection, the nodes collection, and within it we want to look for a particular doc. So we have passed in the ID and we look for the particular document with that ID because we want to update it, and then we call the update function. Within the update function we pass in the node object, the title. So in Firebase, if you remember, we had passed a title and a body there. So the title will be called node object dot title and the body will be called node object dot body. So yeah, that's it. Let's see if that works now. I think there's something missing in our function path, so we can figure that out later. But for now, the editor component was being displayed, and along with that, we have finished a node update function as well. Which file? Okay. Just give me a minute. So anyway, we are almost done with the editor component. Let's move on to the sidebar. So we have something to show on the sidebar as well. So sidebar, and in the render function, instead of just returning this is the sidebar, we want to return something with the nodes. Firstly, we destructure the classes, the props. So basically we are getting from the app.js, here we will be passing some props which will come here and which will be called this dot props here, and we destructure them using this line. So we get nodes, we get classes, and we get selected nodes and nodes. Give this div a class name. Classes dot sidebar container. Oh Oh, I think in this one we have not given a div. That's why the CSS was not working properly. This class name will be classes dot editor container. I think if we go here now, okay, we can figure out the classes very soon. But for now, in sidebar, the sidebar container is the name of the class. We call in a button, and we need a button because we want a button that when clicked, it will create a new node. So on click, we call the new node function, this dot new node, and we will also give this a class, classes dot new node button. And here we will implement these functions. Okay, just the new node function. We will implement it in just a minute. Until then, we want, okay, so let me go here. Now this is the sidebar, and within it there are going to be a list of nodes. So, and each node will be a sidebar item. So here we will call a list. Firstly, a list. Within it I'm going to write JSX, so I'll just put a curly braces. Then call nodes.map. What map does is it iterates over each component of the array, and then we can pass in a function to tell it what to do. So we pass in a node and an index, and this will iterate over each node. So each node and each index, and based on the number of nodes, it will display the number of items on the list. We pass in a key so that we know how many items are there. And we get the sidebar item component. So yeah, and within the sidebar item component we have to pass some props. So the first one is the node, then there's the index, selected node index, and two functions, select node and delete node. We also pass in a divider, which will just display a line in between each item. So now that we've passed these two functions, we need to implement them here as well. So there is select node and there is delete node. So one more thing here is, so whenever we get the nodes, where is that? Yeah, this one. So if the nodes array is empty, then this whole thing is going to give us an error. So we will just enclose this in an if statement. So if there are nodes, then this entire thing if there are nodes, then this entire sidebar will be displayed. Else, sometimes it takes time for the nodes to be loaded. So else we will just display a loading word here. So it might take just a few minutes for the nodes here. If you see these nodes, component did mount here sets the nodes state here as the nodes that are returned from Firebase. So to connect to Firebase and retrieve all the nodes may take some time. So until then, the loading keyword is displayed just for a few seconds. Okay, I think the div should be outside, right here. Brackets. If nodes, just a minute. Okay, I'm just going to copy it from here because it's the same thing, but it's just that there were some errors with the Yeah, I think it should work now. The mistake I made was that if notes should be outside, and within that the return statement has to be made. Okay, great. So in the sidebar, we now have a button using which we can create a new node. We have a new node function here, which will be called whenever we want to click that button. Then there will be a list which will show us each node, and the way it will do this is by calling a sidebar item component, and between each of these items will be a divider. Yeah, and then whenever the nodes have been loaded, the loading statement goes away and the nodes are loaded. We will implement these functions later. Let's head on to the sidebar item so that as soon as possible we have something visual to see. So here we have just written this is the sidebar item, but we want to do something more concrete here. Firstly, we destructure the props. So the props that we have are index, node, classes, and selected node index. Okay, and how do we know these are the props that have been passed? We go to sidebar, we see where sidebar item component is there, and we see we have node that has been passed as a prop. There's index and there's selected node index, and there are also two functions, select node and delete node. So the functions we will use later, but the other props we will destructure them here. Now we use a material UI component. It's called list item, and we call it right here. We have imported it right here. Import list item text from material UI core, and also this. So list item and list item text. Now within list item we pass in some props, some properties. The class will be called classes.listItem. And you know why we use these particular names for our classes? Because the styles.js contains exactly that. The styles.js contains a style called list item that is then called here. So classes.list item, and this particular CSS will be applied on this list item here. Selected is equal to selected node index equal to. So whenever we select a particular node, we want to make sure that the selected node index is equal to the index of this particular item. So that's why whenever this entire thing becomes true, then selected becomes true, and so that particular node is highlighted. Okay, so the list item is done with all the properties. Now within it, we want to pass something else. We want to pass in the list item text to display text inside the list item. So inside that we call in a div and we give it some classes. classes.text section, then onClick is equal to a function, and we pass in note and index. So as I said, within the div we need a list item text, and the list item text also takes in some parameters. So there is primary and then there is secondary. Now primary means the primary text, means the text which is displayed in a bigger font, and then there is a secondary text which you can use if needed to write the body of the note. So primary is equal to note.title. So we display the note title here, and secondary we display a part of the body of the note, underscore note dot body, and just a substring of the body up to like 30 characters. So this one actually, what React Quill does is that whatever is typed into the text is then saved as into the database as HTML. So we want to remove the HTML tags. And if you remember, in the helpers file here, we had copied a remove HTML tags function. After this, we want to just pass in some dots to make it look nice. Okay, so we have a list item. Yeah. And then we write the delete node and select node functions here. We will write in more detail later, but let's see what else we have to do. In app.js, we have to go and pass in the props. So we want a sidebar component to have the selected note index. The notes array, and three functions: new note, select note, and delete note. Okay, so we are almost done with a lot of things. Let's make some functions. Okay, so we will write the functions very soon, but for now let us see if everything is getting displayed. Okay, I think the CSS is a little messed up, but everything else seems to be fine. Let me just check the styles. Okay, let's figure out the CSS soon, but for now, let's see. There is a sidebar here with a new node function. There is a editor component right here, which is giving errors, but that's because we have not implemented it completely. And yeah, I think we are done with a basic thing. We just need to refine it a little more. So let's write the functions now. So new node. I'm just going to copy it right here because that saves time and I have more time to explain it to you. So new node will be an asynchronous function, and if you see when we highlighted async, the await keyword also got highlighted. So whenever we want to use an await keyword, we have to make the function asynchronous. So we have here we want to await this entire statement. So we want Firebase to add, so firebase.firestore.collection nodes, and we use the add function to add this particular node, which is to add an empty node with an empty title and an empty body. So here we say title node.title, body node.body, and if we want we can add a timestamp as well. So when we click on the new node function, an empty node is created, and then here what we do is when that node is created, we want it to be selected. So if you remember, right here, okay, not here, here, this particular thing. So when the selected node index is equal to the index of this particular item, that particular node is selected. So when we set the selected node and the selected node index to this node, to the new node index, and set the state of the app component, then a new node is created which has that new node selected. So that's the new node function. Then let's go to select node. Select node is just a small line. Select node takes in a node and an index, and it sets the state as selected node index becomes that index and selected node becomes this node. And that's how the node is selected. Now delete node. Delete node is right here. Now delete node is also an asynchronous function because we are using an await keyword, and we want to await this particular line here. And when we click on the delete button, we want that the particular node is deleted from our browser as well as from Firebase. So we delete from the Firebase using this particular function .delete using the node ID. And here we are basically removing it from our sidebar item. So from our state actually, so this dot set state, this dot state dot nodes, from our nodes we filter out that particular node, this node, and everything else is remaining in the nodes collection. And this particular part is meant to basically whenever we want to delete a node, we use this to determine what else should be selected now after the selected node has been deleted. So if the selected node is the same as the node that has to be deleted, then nothing is selected now, and else if the node's length is greater than 1, then the same node is continued to be selected by subtracting the index by 1, and if there's nothing left in the nodes array, then of course nothing null is selected. So the delete node is done now. I promise you just a few things left, and then we are soon to be done with this. Okay, so I think we are done with app.js mostly. We have the component did mount, select no. Okay, yeah, so app.js is pretty much done. We can leave that aside for some time now. Let's see if we have any functions to implement in the editor.js. Okay, there doesn't seem to be anything here. So in the sidebar.js, new node, select node, and delete node have to be implemented. Okay, so the new nodes will just be taken from the props. So this dot props dot new node, because we are passing in the new node function from app.js into sidebar.js. Select node will also be something similar, this dot props dot select node. In select node we pass in a node and an index. Delete node will also be quite similar, this dot props dot delete node, and we want to pass in that particular node. So now we are done also with sidebar. Last stop is sidebar item. Select node is also coming from the props. So select node takes in a node and an index. This dot props dot select node n comma I. Delete node is this dot props dot delete node node. One more thing is we want to confirm whether the person wants to actually delete the node or was it by mistake. So we do this. So there will be a window appearing whenever delete node is called, which will ask you, are you sure you want to delete node.title? I've used backticks here to make sure that I can use this variable here. So it will display the title of that node, and if we click on yes, then this delete node is called from the props. Okay, let's see what we have here. For some reason, this one gives an error. Okay, but I think we have one small thing left, which is the delete icon here. Delete icon, which takes in a class called classes.delete icon. And an onClick function. Okay, we are done with our entire code. Oh yeah, I think there was something. So when we went into Firebase, we created a sample node called today's title, and this is today's node. So we have that here, and we have everything else, the sidebar, the editor, but this is giving an error. So I'm just going to show you, because this thing is going to take a huge amount of time to debug. All I will do is I will go into my React application, which I finished earlier, to show you how it should work. So it's loading, and then we have all our nodes here. When we click on new node, a new node is formed, is created with an empty title and an empty body. We can write the title here. We can write hello from our workshop here as the body. It's a rich text editor, so we can do a number of things. We can call this the heading, underline it, do a bunch of things here. We can also select different nodes. We can delete this particular node. Are you sure you want to delete it? Okay, and it's deleted. And then there's nothing, the editor is not being displayed because nothing is there, nothing is selected. And as soon as we select something, we have the node being displayed here. So yeah, this is what I wanted to show you for today's workshop. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned something, and please ask your questions here. I'll try to answer them. And yeah, see you for the next workshop. Our next workshop is on Tuesday. It's a workshop in collaboration with Etisalat. We are building a fleet management system using Etisalat's web platform, and I'm really excited for it. So I hope you are excited too. So yeah, see you there.